to our lesson on water pollution, and we're going to be talking about different ways that the water supply can be polluted. And we're going to start off in the farmyard area. So if we go and look at the farm, and we have a farmer who is plowing his field, and he's tilled up all of the dirt. We're going to put in some powder here to represent the dirt, and he's getting it ready to plant. And then he's got his cows out in the pasture. Maybe the farmer also needs to kill any pests that are in the ground. Maybe there's grub worms and things, and he wants his garden to grow well. And he puts some fertilizer down in his garden so that the corn grows really well. Well, he's got the cows here, and they go grazing all around the pasture here. And so sometimes when it gets hot, they go down into the creek and they try to cool off in the creek. And not only do they just go in the creek to cool off, sometimes they go to the bathroom in the creek and pollute the water here. And so we might end up with some pollution that's also in the creek here, and they trample down the sides of the creek banks and make all of the creek banks start breaking down. So the farmer himself is very dependent on his clean water supply, because this goes straight into his ground, and then his well can get contaminated by all of the chemicals that he's putting on the ground and from the cows in the creek. Let's go now to the factory that's nearby. And so at the factory, they're making things, and they may have to give off waste and pollution. And so if it is not properly contained, maybe they are sending sludge through their pipes and things, and this can also contaminate into our water supply. And so you guys know that whenever you're driving down the highway, sometimes you'll see a car that puts off this black smoke where it's burning oil, or when they start to take off, they drip oil, or when they've parked and they drip oil on the road. Sometimes you see it as a really shiny spot on the road, and that's the oil that's come out of the car, any kind of petroleum products. Right here we see the water treatment plant for this subdivision that's over here. And in the water treatment plant, all of the water that comes from the homes, like from the toilets, from the washing machines, people washing their cars, goes down into the drainage field, and then it goes into these holding tanks, these clarifying tanks, so that they can clean that. And it's fine unless we get a big flood and then these overfill, and then they can contaminate the water supply that's around. And notice how close these are to the creeks right here. In the subdivision, I've been to a lot of subdivisions. Their grass always looks so green and pretty because they put lots of fertilizer. And on the back of your fertilizer bag, it may say to put your fertilizer spreader on maybe 4. Well, if your dad is one that's like, if 4 is good, 7's better, and so he decides, I need lots more fertilizer in my yard, so my grass is greener than the Smiths. Well, as he's doing that, he's over-fertilizing, and that fertilizer actually gets taken out of his lawn and washed into the water supply or down the drainage field. So like in here, the drain or sewage pipes, anything that washes from the subdivision goes into these. We need to be very careful to not let oils and contaminants like pesticides, maybe we've got mosquitoes in our yard and we put down pesticides, or fleas, and we put down pesticides in our yard to kill all of that. And so as the subdivision grows, well, we'll speak over that right now. When we've got hills and all, and if we take down the trees so that maybe we can build a park, or we can build another house up here on this hill, and we take that away, it leaves this exposed ground so that erosion can take place, and that can contaminate our water supplies. And as our subdivisions grow, and we have big equipment coming in to clean out the area so that we can put in a new house here, we're exposing all of that ground so that it's now open for erosion and moving and depositing into our water supply. So if this all happens, all of these little things are taking place, and then we get a big flood come into the area. So we're going to let this water bottle represent the rain. And so as it rains in this area where all of the trees have been removed, we start to see erosion taking place. And so the soil is going to start moving to an area from the that's high up in the watershed to a lower area. So the watershed is always going to be pulled by gravity to go to the lower area. And so in the subdivision here, as we look at all of the chemicals that have been sprayed into the yard, and as it rains more, we're going to start to see that. Don't forget, we've got a sewage pipe right here, and so we need to watch where all of our drainage goes and seeing how it contaminates our water supply. On the streets, we also see that the oils from our streets. And then we've got the water clarifying tanks, and if they overflow, that is a very bad thing, and so it goes into our water system. And so as we start to see this pollution taking place, we are going to see how the water, like the lake that's near here, starts to change. Oh, there's those cows. They need to get out of that creek before it floods, so we're going to bring them back up here into the pasture. And so as we come to Farmer Joe's pasture where he's plowing, we notice that we have the terrain that is being plowed in this direction. What could have been a better way to do that? Notice how he's got it going in this direction. Let's think about that. Okay. And then we go over to the factory, right there. Okay. And we start to see some of the pollution that's going into the lake nearby the farm. And then coming back over here, we go to the factory, and we start to see from the factory when sludge comes from there and it drains into our waterways. A lot of laws have been made to try to prevent this from happening so that it doesn't drain into our waterways, and people can get fined a lot of money for doing that. So we want to make sure that people are abiding by the law and not contaminating our waterways. So lots of different things have contributed to our lake being contaminated, and so we start to see how it changes, and then maybe the fish start to die in there. Well, what are some of the things that we could have done to prevent some of this from happening?